It's just important to think about, because when people used to come when I was practicing law and they're like, I have to own 51%. And I was like, you can actually control the company without owning 51%. One thing that's good to think about, because a lot of folks feel like it's really important to own 100% of the company or a 51% ownership of the company, and if they don't, that they're really in a bad place. But if you look at a few people, Jeff Bezos, this is his post-divorce settlement of $35 billion net worth. So he was able to shed $35 billion of net worth, but and only owns 12% of the company now. His ex-wife owns 4%, but he's still worth $110 billion with 12%, right? So Warren Buffett, $86 billion. He only owns 38% combined A and B shares of Berkshire. Bill Gates, $105 billion, 1.3% of Microsoft. So as you go through, Phil Knight is Nike, $32 billion, 19% of Nike, and then Zuck at $70 billion with 28% of Facebook. So none of those are 51% interests. All of those are people who are wildly wealthy. They've got successful companies, but those same things apply down the line with just smaller numbers. So, divide by 100 if you want and say, you're only at 1 billion. And yeah, it's just important to think about, because when people used to come when I was practicing law and they're like, I have to own 51%. And I was like, you can actually control the company without owning 51%. But if you need the capital, or you've got other people that it makes sense to have as equity owners, then you don't really have to have that percent. And as far as strategies, so what's really cool is, so Bezos is a good example. Their settlement that they just did, his 16 point whatever percent is still controlled by him through a proxy. And a proxy agreement with his wife, it's called a proxy coupled with an interest, which means that I'm going to give you this ownership interest in these stock shares, and that's considered the interest, and you're going to agree that they're in a voting trust and I have the right to vote them as long as you own them. So that's just a proxy. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is Warren Buffett has two classes of shares. He's got Class A and Class B. Class A shares have 200 times the voting power of the Class B shares. So he's able to stay in control even though he doesn't have it. Gates didn't have any strategy like that at all. He's done fine. It's just straight common stock, and that's okay too. And Phil Knight, and I think Phil Knight, I've got cautionary tales after this, but Phil Knight, when he was going public, how many of you have read Shoe Dog? Yeah, Shoe Dog is a great read, or listen if you don't get a chance. If you get a chance, how many of you read Little Black Stretchy Pants? Little Black Stretchy Pants is Chip Wilson, who founded Lululemon. It's his story, and what's awesome is that the difference in the stories, if you read Shoe Dog and Little Black Stretchy Pants consecutively, then you'll see how one person did it right and one person did it wrong. And it wasn't, I think, because of Wilson's, being a bad guy. I think he got bad advice. But what's interesting about Nike is, if you read that book, Phil was in the process of going public. He never wanted to go public. He held on as long as he possibly could, and then he needed the capital. And it was always, as entrepreneurs know, especially in an inventory-based business, it was always like on the brink of disaster, even though it was world famous, all the best athletes, and ridiculous amounts of sales. But he ultimately needed to go public, and they were negotiating it, and he said, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to lose control and risk being thrown out, and my vision isn't able to be realized. And they said, well, then just do different classes of shares. So they set up two classes of shares, and ultimately, I think it was kind of Brinksman-y, because they went right down to the public offering, and he wasn't going to do it, and they finally said, you can do these two classes of shares, and he said, okay. And initially, I think the people who were taking him public in the syndicate said no, and he said, well, then I'm not going public, and they were like, hang on, and then they said, okay. And it all worked out. So his deal is that the Class A shares can elect 9 of 12 members of the board of directors. And so that's another way that you can do it with basically, so there's preferential saying I can cast 200 votes, or you can simply say, we're going to have a board of directors. It's going to consist of 9 people. It's never going to be modified unless I agree to that. And I get to elect 9 out of 12 of them, or 75%. So he controls a 75% majority. If the board doesn't do what he wants them to do, he simply fires the people that are on the board and elects people that will do what he wants to do. So, and then Zuckerberg has his shares, 2 classes of stock again. His shares have 10 times voting. So his ownership interest is actually, I think it works out to be like 73% control of the company. So even though he owns less than 51%, he's still able to control. So the thing to take away is there's all kinds of ways that you can go about having fewer than 51% of the shares and still controlling.